Hello, hello, hello. So, today we're going to talk about anger and anxiety and how to tell the difference between the two. We take a brief look at them. We're not going to go into great detail, but I'll be giving examples of what anxiety is, what anger is, different forms of anxiety, different forms of anger. And we'll see if you can recognize yourself or someone else that fits in that category. So let's take a brief look. What is anger? Is it bad? What is anxiety? Is it bad? And the answer is neither one of them are actually good or bad in and of themselves, but it will depend on what's happening, what's going on with the individual, what is the situation about, and it may take a minute to figure all this out. So let's take a look at some appropriate reasons to be angry. An appropriate reason to be angry, and it's too bad that we can't be a little more interactive, because it would be really, really nice to have you guys chat, put some stuff in chat, and we get some really good comments on that, but maybe a little bit later. But what I find is that for appropriate type anger, think of something like you see somebody getting bullied and you go over there to protect what we'll call the underdog. That is an appropriate moment to be angry that there's this injustice happening in the world, right? Maybe there's a situation where you yourself feel threatened or might get attacked. Your anger kicking in at that moment can be a really, really good thing. Of course, we're not going to look at all situations like, well, what if I die? Okay, we're not going to go through all that. But maybe it's not where they have a knife or a gun and it's just, a little more equal. So remember, we're doing a little brief stuff just to give you some ideas and concepts of anger, anxiety, both, neither, you tell me, right? Another thing might be disrespect. If, say, you have something at work, at home, whatever, I don't want to say family members per se, but it could be somebody stealing your stuff, your property, your time. There's a lot of things that could generate this frustration or anger, and it's not unhealthy to have these. The level and extent, the attacking, whether it's more, there's different types of anger that we can take a look at. A more passive anger, an assertive anger, open anger. So we're not going to go into those because we're looking today more in the anger versus anxiety path. Okay, so if we want to look at anger in the good sense, if you will, or I'll call it the healthy. I prefer healthy and unhealthy because in any given situation, it can escalate to unhealthy. So I like to just refer to it as healthy and healthy for the moment of where we are. So typically in the more healthy version of anger, we will look at a problem-focused solution as opposed to a human-focused issue. What I mean by that is we would say, somebody's stealing stuff, how can we remedy this situation versus you're bad and wrong for stealing my stuff. So now it's very individually focused. Now, it doesn't mean that one individual isn't doing it, but it's again, it's the healthy, unhealthy version. So in a minute, we're going to talk about maybe what it feels like on the inside so you can kind of get a sense of what's happening. So not just anger, but several things, all right? So let's look now at what is anger that is inappropriate. So 3 ways inappropriate or unhealthy would be hurting somebody physically because you can't get your way, lashing out, striking them. That's the second one as well. So it's lashing out because someone didn't do things the way that you thought that they should. You thought that they should place something here or put something over there and they didn't do it. And there's this explosion of anger. Another one is when we make other people bad and wrong, but we can't really say what they did, but we know we didn't like it. So, for example, maybe uh, I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's talk about how it feels inside, and then we'll talk about the anxiety. So the unhealthy anger on the inside feels uncontrollable. It feels intense, like the rest of the world seems to disappear except for that moment and what's happening in front of us. The unhealthy anger is either explosive or implosive, right? So let's see how that holds up. So healthy anger is wanting to fix a problem, looking at how we can maybe do things differently. How can we get the buy-in from the other person? Now, communication skills are another video that we'll have to look at shortly. But in this particular case, it's just trying to see how can I have a communication with that person. If we're at work, how can we put together a SOP, like a standard operating procedure for how to get things done? So unhealthy anger, though, those feelings, again, are uncontrollable, demanding, dominating, insisting, and sometimes super uncontrollable. So let's look at anxiety. Is anxiety good or bad, right? Well, we're going to talk about what anxiety actually is, why we have it, and how it is supposed to serve us, okay? So what is anxiety actually? I'm not going to use technical terms because I don't want to get in trouble. So I'm just going to kind of share the concept, the overall concept. So certain parts of our brains are wired to other parts of our brains, and they communicate through these incredibly fast firings of like chemicals, and they communicate with other parts of our brains to alert us faster than we can think about it. Okay, so we have kind of like, we'll call them two brains. We have our older brain, the reptilian brain from caveman times, a long time ago, and then we have our newer brain, the more thinking brain. So reactionary brain, responsive brain. I'll just call it brain one, brain two. So brain one, we can think of as caveman times. You know, how is it that we were able to stay safe when we were a caveman? So if we got too close to a fire, ow, that would burn our hand. That's a reaction. We didn't go, oh, I think the fire burned my hand, maybe I should move it, right? Reactionary. If we heard something growling in the bushes, we didn't go, gee, I wonder what that is, and go over and try to figure it out. It was like, wow, that must be bad because it doesn't sound good, right? Reactionary, we like run. Hunger's like, I gotta find food. Again, these are not thought-provoked feelings or sensations. These are reactions. We have to respond, we have to react to them quickly. And we don't think about it, our body just handles it. Kind of like dilating our eyes and closing back down when we're in or out of sunlight, right? So we, in caveman times, things were either good or we had to react, right? Real dangers. Today, anxiety has a variety of unhealthy situations, right? It's still meant to keep us safe. Don't fall off a cliff. If somebody has a dangerous implement, you want to get away from them as quick as you can. We are, like reacting quickly because that's what it's designed for. Unfortunately, in our current world, we also have a huge amount of what I'll call perceived dangers, perceived fears. And it could be something as, and I hope that you don't think this is too simple, because this is like a really, really big deal for people. We text a partner of ours that normally responds within, I don't know, just pick your length of time, 15 minutes or an hour or whatever. That length of time has passed, they've not responded. You're like, maybe the first couple times that's okay, but then it starts getting weird, like you get really mad about it, right? It's a reactionary thing, not a responsive thing, right? So it could be we're feeling very uncomfortable about a friend talking about us behind our back, and we feel very like threatened about this. Like we're more concerned about what other people are thinking of us than we think of ourselves. And this shows up as a perceived danger, like something bad's going to happen. Now, we don't think of it that way, but our body's reacting as if that's what it is. Another one might be something like a neighbor gets a new vehicle, and then there's this like, oh my God, I got to get a new vehicle. I don't know how I'm going to afford it. And there's that nervousness, that upset, like I got to do something, right? Maybe I have to fix it, right? So we have these sensations in our bodies. So I said we were going to talk about the sensations in our bodies. Anger shows up as a perceived force of energy. And I say perceived, if we use it and we use it the right way, and it may come out if we're physical about it, it is a force of strength, but it feels like that even if we do nothing, because we've got a lot of chemicals coursing through our body and we feel stronger. But a lot of times anxiety doesn't feel that way. Anxiety can feel as if we have that strong feeling, like they're not going to be able to do that. I'm going to stand up to them. I'm going to bow up. But other times anxiety may show up as getting away, avoiding, running away from, like I'm out of here, not handling the situation. So there may be the nervousness of like, how do I get out of here, right? Looking for that exit. Another one may be a shutdown, a bit of a, I don't know what to do. I just feel frozen. I'm stuck, right? So what I'm talking about here are the 4 forms of anxiety. So we have fight, which is we feel really, really strong. Flight could be, I got to get out of here, right? Flight, take off. Things are too upsetting. I can't handle this. I want to avoid this like the plague. I want to get away. Flight. This happens in a lot of relationships where one partner wants to get too close. And when that happens, if the other person has an anxiety going on, they may not even realize that's what it is. They may think, this one's so needy. I can't stand it. I'm going to leave. I'm going to avoid this. And a dismissal, right? But that is a form of anxiety, and that's considered flight. Another form of anxiety, that freezing, that like, I don't know what to do. And so in the I don't know what to do, we literally freeze. Our brain kind of gets stuck and we can't really make good decisions at all. The 4th one is fawn. I didn't really talk about this one yet, but I'm going to talk about fawn. This one is, I haven't come up with a word yet. I'll say it like this. If we're in the middle of something and we cannot fight, maybe that person's way too big. We know we can't overpower them. Maybe they're too dominant, a boss or a parent, maybe a spouse that is very controlling. If we can't fight, and it means verbally or physically, what are we going to do? We're going to say words that are going to like calm this person down. Try to please them. And I don't mean it is people pleasing, but it's pleasing the person to stay safe. Okay, so I want to like revamp the people pleasing thing. It's pleasing people to make sure I stay safe. It can turn into people pleasing later. We'll talk about that, right? Flight, like I can't get away. Now I'm not talking about the spouse that's like, you're too needy and they leave. But in this particular case, maybe you're the person that wants to leave and you cannot. What's going to happen? You want to leave, you can't leave because the person's bigger than you are, because you'll lose your job, because of something. Doesn't mean that terror isn't there on the inside. So what do? If I can't fight, I can't flee, I can't leave, I'm going to please the person to try to calm down the situation. Freeze. Say we're in the middle of something, we want to shut down. I used this the other day. Say you're a little kid, you're like, I don't want to do that thing. The parent's like, you're going to do that thing. You're like, I don't want to. The tears start. You may have had your arm grabbed, like, you're going to do this, and you're still saying, but I don't want to, and with the tears coming and everything. And you may hear something like, oh, keep crying. I'll give you something to cry about. And a lot of other statements that parents may have made to try to get the child to do what the parent wanted them to do. Doesn't mean what the parent wanted was good or bad. It just means the situation is the parent wanted the child to do something. The child did not want to do that thing. If freezing came in and then they realize, oh my goodness, my physical self is in danger, the pleasing this person so that I don't get hurt, becomes a real possibility. So even though fight, flight, and freeze are the official anxiety words, fawn is something happens when we can't fight, we can't flight or flee, and we can't freeze. We will try to please that person. What happens as we get older, we bring this one with us, and we do start people pleasing or pleasing another person even when we don't want to, even when we feel that's not in our best interest. We may say yes and go to an event that we didn't really want to go to. We may participate with someone in our life a lot longer than we would have normally, but they keep inviting us. We keep going. We don't know how to say no. We don't have good boundaries, but there's a good side to it as well. I'm just talking about the parts that are not as good, or the parts you may want to get rid of. I don't know what you want to keep. I don't know what you want to get rid of. You get to decide that. And then if you and I would work together, we would work towards your goal. So when we are in a state of childhood and we can't fight, flight, or freeze, and we go into please the other person, when we become a teenager and we get a little bigger, and then we can feel a little bit more like we want to feel because we're getting away from our family. We've got friends that are corroborating our emotions and agreeing with us. We may go and become a very angry person or lash out uncontrollably and in moments where we wish we wouldn't have. So it's talking about anger and anxiety. So I'm going to bring us back to that. So I talked earlier about possibly hurting someone because you can't get your way. That's the unhealthy side of anger. I talked about lashing out, either emotionally or physically, because they didn't do things the way that you thought that they should, or making others bad or wrong, and you can't really say why, but you just know that they did something that you didn't like. So let's take those three and let me expand on them a little bit. So if you have an anger that comes out, like hurting someone because you can't get your way, what's that really about? I mean, if we can dig a little bit deeper and think about, when did this happen maybe in the past? Did we maybe not feel safe? And that now we feel bigger and this is how we try to make ourselves feel safe? Were we afraid of getting hurt? And this is our way of saying, you're not going to hurt me because I'm going to bow up to you. I'll fight, right? So we're like putting on those strong feelings. If you are someone who lashes out, either emotionally or physically, and then because somebody didn't do things the way you thought that they should, maybe you've stepped into like if we look in the past and we say, oh, what was that about? We may say, oh, that may be a protective thing. I wasn't protected, therefore, I'm going to make sure that you do things the way that I want them done so that I make sure that I feel protected. Or maybe there's a fear of betrayal. Maybe you didn't feel that you could trust people in the past. And so now this person does something. It's like, see, I can't trust this one either, right? We don't think that consciously. It's more like, because our brains work really, really, really fast, it's more like it happens, something starts to happen, and the brain just goes into reactionary mode. Brain one goes into reactionary mode before brain two can think about it, right? Could be a security issue. Could be so many things for us to have that explosion. And the third one, making others bad or wrong, but you can't really say why. It's very possible that your needs were not getting met. If our needs are not getting met, there's a lot of upset about that. We may be very angry because it's like, what do I have to do in order to get my needs met, right? Maybe your core values or your belief systems are being challenged or violated. Again, it's going to be a heightened level of anger and upset if we're not getting our needs met, our belief system is being challenged or violated, or our core values are being challenged or violated. So when we have a situation in our life and anger shows up, we can kind of maybe, if it's the unhealthy anger, right, we may be able to look and say, wow, that's actually a form of anxiety over, I have uncontrollable anger I don't know what to do with. So if it's anxiety I'm going to invite you to watch my video called Why Does It Hurt So Much? And I'm going to put a link because I didn't put it in the little description. So I'm going to put a link in the comment section so that you can go there. It's free. You will have to put your email address in there, but you can watch. It's about an hour and a half long, and it will talk all about how our emotions show up for a reason and the benefits of it, and then some of the frustrating parts, but what can you do about it, right? Because we can turn this around. It's a matter of learning some certain specific information and applying it to your life, but it is possible. That's the best part. All right, I am Deb Pearson, helping you become more awesome on the inside, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.